Okay, this poem I'm about to read for you is one of my own creation. I did actually want to make this video back on Valentine's Day, but on Valentine's Day this year, I wasn't home. I was partying at Mardi Gras in New Orleans, Louisiana, which was awesome. But it did mean that I neglected my channel slightly. This poem's got actually nothing to do with New Orleans. This poem is set in ancient Rome, of all places. In case you didn't know, the urban art of graffiti is no new thing. It's an ancient thing. It's existed at least as long ago as ancient Rome, where there was a huge and thriving graffiti scene. People wrote these bawdy, ribald verses about sex all over the bathhouse walls, and there were, perhaps poems lampooning various political figures and trash-talking authority figures. And of course, there is no greater authority figures in ancient Rome than the gods and goddesses themselves. So this poem takes the form of a piece of graffiti, a rhyming piece of graffiti scrawled across the walls of the Temple of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. And the voice in the poem, when it came to me, was like the voice of a world-weary cynic, but a cynic who was basically a failed romantic, someone who's always been an acolyte of the goddess Venus, but is now kind of world-weary and not exactly having a crisis of faith, but feels sort of as though that he's been kind of taken for a fool throughout his life, and he's kind of resigned to having been taken for a fool. I don't know why I wrote it. It's one of those things where sometimes an idea pops into your head and you forget about it. Other times an idea pops into your head and there's a notebook to hand and you get scribbling and it emerges. You give man birth to it, in my case, I guess. So it's called Roman Graffiti. I couldn't think of a better title than that. Again, as I've said before, if you can think of better titles to my poems than I have thought of, put them in the comments section or whatever. I'm going to read it in a kind of classically trained actor pronunciation sort of voice, because everybody knows that that's exactly how people in ancient Rome used to speak. So here's the poem. I hope you enjoy it. I'm older now than I was once, but cannot claim I'm wiser. Still worship Venus like a dunce. By rights I should despise her. Each honeyed lie that I mistook as scripture told in candour, she laced into a song, a book, some poet's propaganda. In both the trite and gruesome plays one sees at the Marcellus, what cynics heckled I would praise, for I was young and zealous. I know it's all just ox dung now, and should not pause to grieve it, yet I'll allow some parts somehow still tempted to believe it. When men can't love, they must retreat to hermitage or Hades, for men who can't forgive deceit can't socialize with ladies. The most heavenly of earthly things, the work of gods, not artists, who play heart, purse, and puppet strings, part harpies and part harpists. I fear it always has been thus. Since Rome was but a village, most men are slaves to Venus, and maids made in her image. Some seek a different sex of spouse to soothe the carnal craving, oft visiting the bathing house, but doing little bathing. Such sodomites whose mating rites dance to another tune, find spending nights with catamites does not make them immune, for Venus tempts all men to flesh, except, perhaps, for eunuchs. Some seek the sort that wears a dress, for some it comes in tunics. From silk-betokened senators to grubby base plebeian, we all are jesters, slaves and whores within her Colosseum. The wisest of the oracles, and even mighty Caesar, will kneel in her manacles, their tongues outstretched to please her. Plus all of those poetic sorts, from Virgil to Catullus, use not the mind to order thoughts so much as heart and phallus. These scribblers, these charlatans, deluded and dramatic, they see their holy harlot's hands in urges more priapic. All players plague things, set the chaste, and she'll play cruel and fickle, till o'er Rome is laid to waste, the Tiber but a trickle. But fearing she will part the clouds, reach right down to smite me, I rant not to the forum's crowds, a curse on Aphrodite. I ought to take a hammer to her statue and assault her, but being too enamoured too, I grovel at her altar. Whatever wrongs she's done to me, I bear her no begrudgment. I still believe in love, you see, against my better judgment.